Hello there, Jose Rodriguez here. A day does not go by where I do not receive a lot of beginners' questions, and that shows me that there's a lot of people getting into printing. And many of those questions are rather easy to answer. Some of them are quite obvious. But if you're beginning to get into home printing, this is a field that, brings a lot of unknowns to people. And so that's why I am here, to try to answer and try to help those who are trying to eagerly get into this wonderful hobby or craft. 5 questions. How many prints can I get out of one set of cards? You can't say at all. I cannot answer that question. The reason is, first of all of the colors that your printer uses are used at incredibly different rates. Okay, it's not an even usage of each one of those cartridges. So say you begin with 100 total ml of ink combined from all of the other cartridges that are in your printer. And if I tell you that a letter size print requires 1 ml of ink, for instance, combined, to produce a photograph that is a normal photograph with a full range of tonalities from black all the way to white, a full usage of colors across the rainbow, you still could not get 100 prints out of that 100 ml of ink. Okay, they're going to be used at varying rates. Images differ in predominance of color, so they will use a certain range of inks more than the other remaining colors, and so those colors are going to go empty long before the other colors maybe reach halfway down. So you will be inserting cards to replace those that go empty long before the others do. And so at the end of that all, by the time you have used all of the original colors, you may have already used, say, 1.5 the number of cartridges. So you really cannot say. The only way to actually make a semi-intelligent calculation is to take, for instance, a printer that has, say, the Pro 100. The Pro 100 from Canon has 8 cartridges. They hold a total of 13 ml of ink, but 2.5 to 3 ml of that ink is trapped in the sponge. And unless you run those cartridges to the very point where they reach empty, you will still have about 1.5 to 2 ml of ink left in that sponge. The reason for that is that you don't want to run that cartridge dry and then burn out your printhead. Remember, Canons have thermal printheads. So in reality, you're going to basically take advantage of maybe 10 ml total out of the 13. So that's 10 ml times 8, that gives you 88 ml total. Well, in a perfect world, in some kind of alternate universe, you would use those cards at exact rates. And so you would get 88 ml, that is 1 ml per smallish letter size print. So 88 prints. But in the real world, on our side of the universe, that doesn't happen. That's not what happens. If you miss a period of time of 2.5 days, the printer will run a clean cycle, and that clean cycle will use ink across the board. So there goes some ink that's going to be wasted because of that cleaning cycle that will not be utilized for printing. So unless I can actually predict exactly how often you will let that printer sit for more than 60 hours or longer, there's no way for me to guess how many prints you can possibly get, even in that perfect universe we just discussed a few seconds ago. So yeah, there's no answer to that. You will use up 1 to 1.5 ml per letter size print, and that's almost full bleed, maybe with a small border around. And of course, the image would be a standard type image with a full range of tones, full range of colors. 1 to 1.5 ml. All right, so you can do the math and sort of get a sort of a calculation of how long those cards will last you and how many prints of a given size they will produce. So that is it. There's no answer to that. Okay, one of my channels is blocked and does not respond to the usual unblocking methods. That is running a cleaning cycle, and if that doesn't work, then you resort to some unorthodox techniques like placing a Windex window cleaner soaked paper towel under the printhead. Let those ammonia fumes try to do the job to dissolve any ink that may be dried on the nozzle plate. Maybe that'll work if it is actually due to dried up ink. And how does that happen? From non-use. Okay, but that may or may not work, especially on Epson printers. If you let them sit for a month or two, you may develop a problem. If you have a card that is just simply not feeding ink, then it will appear as if you have a channel that's blocked. If a channel is completely blank, I would not look for clogging. I would look for something to do with that cartridge. It is probably not feeding ink to that channel. You never have a full channel just gone, where not a single nozzle little line will print on your nozzle check. That is very, very unusual. It's either a mechanical failure or your cartridge is just simply not feeding ink at all. And so you have nothing but air in that channel. And so that is what you're printing with, air. And air prints what? Blank. But in case it is indeed a blockage, say for instance you are getting some lines and they are changing, maybe they are improving a little bit after each treatment with that wet paper towel with Windex, but you're not really getting the complete improvement that you need. You're not really reaching 100% flow on that channel. Then there are things that you could do. It's a little bit invasive, but it works. And you have to be extremely careful because you can actually damage your printhead. You will position your printhead using the normal procedures over a paper towel that's folded beneath it. In other words, your nozzle plate will be on top of that paper towel. You will load up some Windex or other cleaning agent specific for printheads into a syringe. This is just a plain tip syringe. This is fuel tubing from model airplanes. It is about, I would say, 3/16 of an inch diameter, and it's got a hole about maybe 3/32 inch diameter. That will fit perfectly over the printhead ink stem. So you will remove, say for instance, your yellow cartridge, if that's the one that is not printing correctly, and assuming that all of the other ones are just fine, you will carefully remove the cartridge and you will insert this and seal it on that ink stem. This should fit perfectly. You will have loaded some cleaning agent and you will try to inject some of that cleaning agent directly into the ink stem. If you are able to do that, then inject just a couple of ml and let that printer sit there. Pull back a bit, see if you get any kind of backflow. If you get full backflow, again, continue to inject that cleaning agent. Stop, let it rest, come back, and continue. Stop, let it rest. You're going to take all day to do this. Back and inject again. Once you have injected, say, 5, 6, 7 ml of the Windex or a proprietary head cleaning agent, you can then remove this, reinsert your cartridge, assuming that the cartridge is flowing correctly, do a cleaning cycle, and perform a nozzle check. Chances are you will have 90% of your lines returning. At that point, let that printer just sit overnight and then run another nozzle check the next day. You should have 100% of your nozzles firing. That is assuming, of course, that the printhead is not damaged. Now, why isn't there a gadget for that? Well, there is. Here's what it looks like. This will replace your cartridge. It has a O-ring port that will sit over the ink stem, and then you just simply insert a syringe directly. You attach the syringe and inject. So basically, you just do not need the tubing. This is a lot easier. This is sold by inkrepublic.com. and it's a nifty little gadget. I use it once in a while on some of my really old R series printers, and it works just fine. I just recently did it, and as you can see, I got a perfect nozzle check on a Workforce 1100. All right, that is it for that question. Are my card chips interchangeable? Wow. No, they're not. Absolutely not. You think Canon or Epson will allow you to do that? No, they will not. They want you to buy specific cartridges with specific chips for that particular printer, even those, for instance, an R2000, we were just talking about a clog on an R2000. That's what the model was. They have the same cartridge size, same shape as the R1900, but they will not work. And not only are the chips different and will not be accepted by either printer, but the keyways on the cartridges themselves. And here are some PGI 29 cartridges. Let me show you what a keyway looks like. This is a keyway right here. The keyways are specific to each cart, so they will not fit on the wrong slot, and they will not fit on the same color slot but opposing printers. So no, they are not interchangeable, especially Pro 100s. Everyone's asking me about that. Can I use the same chip for red on yellow? No, you cannot. It's got to be a specific chip. Unfortunately, that is the case. All right, can I just adjust color with the sliders on my driver, especially to bring out deep purples and blues? Well, deep purples and blues are impossible to reproduce by most printers. Now, if you begin with a X-ray color checker passport and you calibrate that image to your camera lens illumination combination so that the sensor, which did not produce the correct rendering, none of them do, will now produce an image that actually at least closely matches what you originally saw. Okay, at least at that point you are beginning with an image that is now corrected, and so possibly now with a good ICC profile you should be able to reproduce some of those difficult colors, assuming your printer has a wide enough gamut capability. That's it. There's no other way. You cannot just individually adjust those colors with the sliders. Those adjustments are global. So if you try to increase the blue or purple on those bridesmaids dresses, you will also affect the rest of the image. So no, you cannot globally adjust those colors. The only way to do that is to use a good camera profile. Okay? Go back to my color checker series on that, and you will be able to figure out how to do it, or just go to X-Rite or YouTube and just type in color checker passport, and it will show you the magic and how it works. Why do I have to fill my modified Canon sponge carts when they are low? Why can't I just wait until they're empty? Well, that has been discussed. I can't remember. I lost count. When your cartridge is full, everything is hydrostatically balanced. Okay? The sponge is allowed to reach the correct level of saturation. Now you create a need for ink, meaning you're beginning to print, and the print head will suck out some ink out of that cartridge. When you create a deficit in that sponge, at the same time, simultaneously, ink from the liquid reservoir feeds into to replenish the ink that you just used. Okay? And so that sponge is kept perfectly balanced. When the liquid reservoir reaches empty, you no longer have any ink to replenish that sponge. So if you continue to print beyond that low point, that's when the low warning is triggered, by the way. If you continue to print beyond that, now you will be using ink out of the sponge as normally, but nothing will be replenishing it. Nothing but what? Air. So you will create these little pockets of air that will remain trapped. And so when you try to then modify and refill that cart, air cannot be pushed out. Okay? Ink will infiltrate the sponge, yes, but it will not saturate it 100% as it should be for 100% ink flow. And why is that important? Again, I go back to the printer. Canons are thermal head users, and so those thermal print heads require ink to remain cool, and without the proper flow of ink, they will burn out. Fill your cartridges when they reach low. Do not allow the sponge to lose any of that saturation. Catch it at that magic point, and that will have the best results for you and will prevent any problems with ink flow. All right? Believe me when I say that. Trust me. I speak from experience. All right, thank you. That is it. I hope I answered these 5 quickies. These are very common questions everybody asks about, and some of them have answers and some of them do not have answers. All right, thank you once again. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.